Hello and welcome to the Fishing Guide Podcast. I'm your host, Brad Wiegmann. Tell you what, pretty exciting. Travis is here. Travis just got done fishing. He's a Major League Fishing pro on Clarks Hill. Actually went over there and did really good. Finished second place over in the Invitational that they're having. And so he had to be on the show. You just on it like 3 weeks ago, and I'm like, bringing him back. So you probably want to come back like every month, don't you?
If this is part of doing well, I hope I'm here every tournament afterwards. So
there you go. Yeah. You'll have to have your own show at that point. You just have to give it up. But successful angler in Northwest Arkansas and in the Ozark region, and now starting to spread out. And tell us a little bit about finishing. He brought his trophy in.
Yeah, it's not the big trophy, but it's still a good one.
It's darn good, that's for sure. So tell us how this went down. And tell us a little bit first about your preparation for this tournament, because a lot of people will just see like the lures and they'll be like, oh, I can go throw that jig or I can go throw that crankbait and I don't have to practice. Yeah. Tell us how and in fact your method of practicing for a tournament.
So for this particular event, Clarks Hill is like, it fluctuates much like Beaver here. And so Google Earth was a tool that I greatly utilized. And in pre-practice, before I ever got there, I had a bunch of rock piles and rocky points and other offshore structure that fish will like to pull up on right before they spawn. And so in practice, I started running that stuff and just never found any real size. But the spot that I actually end up fishing the last 2 days is a spot that my travel partner, Scotty Valines, and we got to talking, and he was kind of figuring out a pattern, and we were kind of working together, and that's a huge key. But he actually was gracious enough. I was like, all right, what does this area look like? And he, looked over my boat and he dropped a waypoint like here and here. And so he's like, you can go back there and fish, whatever. And these are places he's planning to fish in the tournament. And I was like, I don't need to fish your spots. Like, I just want to go get a visual look at it. And as soon as I went there, got a visual look at it, got on Google Earth, looked at the trails I'd been running on my Lowrance, and I was like, oh, I made it to this spot, but right here, this is where it's going to go down.
That's the juice, huh?
It's just a shallow backwater area. Yeah, and you could see that the main river was muddy, but this backwater area is starting to clear up. And even in some of the historical images, you could tell that was what's happening back there. So that to me said, okay, this is going to be the most stable water up here in this river. This river is going to warm up the quickest.
Right.
And it did. It was 65 to 69 degrees there in the tournament. Wow. I mean, those warm days, you get some sun in the afternoon, and I was so shallow that I had my Lowrance Ghost. I mean, it was jacked all the way up out of the water. I've got most times people have a mud line on your boat, but I've got a mud line on my active target transducer. That was how far I had it, had the trail motor raised up. But those areas are warming up quickest, and those fish were just moving back in there. And I didn't expect day 3 to have as many fish move in there as there end up being. But the night before the last day, it was nice, warm night, similar to what we've got here. Right. Windy, warm. I mean, perfect conditions. And as soon as I got into that area, I was throwing this swim jig here on this Vertus Jewel 7.6 flip pitch rod, and you couldn't take it away from them. I mean, they were trying to jerk the rod out of your hand and eat that jig. So.
And so you got another bait there too. So
this is the day 1 bait that I had 1811 on. I threw it on the Vertus Jewel deep diver rod, and this is just a 1.5 red square bill. I used it to crank all the bridges around there, just typical pre-spawn pinch points. These fish, they're moving back there, and there's underneath the bridge, there's an opening they've got to swim through there. So keying in on those little pinch points, I put a good bag together for me the first day, and I never even made it up to the area I ended up fishing the last 2 days, because I told myself, hey, if I've got a good bag by like 12 or noon, I'm going to get out of here, get back closer to weigh in, fish some of the offshore stuff, see if there have been any fish, because that's what I fished the first day of practice. And so it had been a couple of days since I'd been able to run through that. But the shallow bite was so good that I didn't need to. So afternoon of the first day, I spent back down the lake trying to just trying to run into some of those bigger pre-spawn fish back down lake, and it never panned out for me. And so after that, I was like, all right, we're all in on this river deal, and very fortunate that it worked out the way it did. Came up a little short. I stumbled a little bit on the second day,
right?
But I mean, second professional tournament in my career, and I couldn't ask for a better ending.
And so the first day, what'd you have for weight on the first day?
18.11 the first day,
right?
15.7 the second day,
right?
And then really wowed the crowd with 23.14, which was the biggest bag of the event on the last day.
Wow!
Yeah,
look at that.
Yeah.
What's it like having 23 pounds of? They were largemouth, right? All largemouth in that bass cat.
Man, it was it was crazy. I've had a lot of fantastic days in my bass cat, but that topped them all. I've won a lot of money out of that boat. One of my buddies, he had actually texted me after the first day. He said, "Man, I don't know if there's." He said, "I know those bass cats catch a lot of fish, but he said there's not many that have caught as many as yours has." So
right,
yeah.
So 23 was a big one, and most of them were all caught on the jig.
Every one of those was on a white quarter-ounce swim jig. Yeah. I threw a jewel, but I ran out of those, and I just grabbed whatever I could get a hold of, and it didn't matter. They were so shallow. I mean, I've got some GoPro footage that I'll be releasing here soon on YouTube and then on Instagram.
All right.
And it was crazy. I mean, some of them, they hit it like a topwater.
Wow.
They blow it out of the water and they've got it, and those fish up there are so shallow. I mean, when they hit it, they were running. And so these quick reels, this is a 8 1-to-1 just to ensure that when you got a hook in them, you kept a hook in them. And
right.
Reel them, crank them in, and flip them over the side. The 5-pounder, it had a great big head. I think it was actually a post-spawn fish moving out of the area. And when I saw it come up, I thought, oh my gosh, where's my net? And I totally forgot to get it out. So I run to the back deck, lip it, throw it in the box, stand back up there, and out of the exact same spot. I mean, I was power pulled down, never moved, threw right back the same cast a couple minutes later and caught that 6-pounder. And that's when I knew it was going to be one of those magical days, and it really was. I mean, I had 20 pounds in 30 minutes, 40 minutes, and
wow.
You go around and get in a little flurry, and you catch a 3-pounder that doesn't help you, and you're thinking, man,
3-pounder.
There's 49 guys that would probably really appreciate a fish like this today, and then you go and catch a 4.5 and a 4-pounder. I mean, a 3.11 was my smallest fish the last day, so there towards the end, I was like, man, I've got to catch a really big one just to even go a little bit.
You really have to keep your foot down on the throttle, don't you? On these tournaments, people are like, man, you had like 23 pounds. You're like, that's just not enough.
That's not enough, yeah. I mean, shout out to Dakota Ebear. He caught them all 3 days. I just stumbled too much on the second day.
Right.
Hindsight looking back on it, I made one pass through the area, caught 5 fish for like 11, 12 pounds, and then towards the end of the day, came back in and caught 3 more fish, and they all cold. And I thought, well, that's pretty good. I've salvaged my day. I thought they were like 13, 14 pounds, and so I was happy that they were 15 and a half. But now looking back on it, coming up 10 ounces shy, I wish I'd have made probably one more lap in that area. But just because there's fish roaming all around there, I was worried on day 2 that there wouldn't be enough fish to go around for another day. But when I showed up there day 3, there was a whole new wave of fish, and they were ready. They'd been out there on the main river channel and hadn't seen a bait and were ready to eat a bait.
Did you have a camera in your boat, a cameraman?
On day 2, I did.
On day 2?
But then,
you weren't them on day 3, didn't you?
Well, so one of the producers had called me the night before. He said, hey, are you going to go back to that area? Because it was a very remote area, way up the river, no cell phone service.
Right.
So for the live aspect, he'd asked me, hey, you've earned your due time on live. Would you be okay if we swap a day here at Clarks Hill for a day at Eufaula or a day at Grand?
Right.
So both of those lakes are, closer to home. Is that something you'd be interested in? And I said, absolutely. Somewhere I can actually hopefully be on live. I'm not up in a remote area with no service, but somewhere where the fans and everybody following along and actually get a shot to see me. But yeah, for the TV show sake of it, I wish there would have been a camera in the boat, because that was, it was, you set the hook and it's a stinking big one.
Right.
And you're like, man, I catch the 5-pounder, and I'm thinking I hadn't caught one near that big in there the day before. So I'm thinking, wow, that's incredibly lucky. I'm completely fortunate to do something like this. And then go a couple minutes more and catch a 6-pounder. And so you're just like, at that point, what is going to happen in here today? Your mind goes crazy.
Right. And so, but you went there actually thinking forward facing. You thought, man, this is going to be that, because you actually have a little history on the lake of doing some mapping for Lawrence, don't you?
Yeah. And that played a big key in it, just as far as running up the rivers, being able to run comfortably, and having a great map that, exactly. I mean, I know exactly where the contours are because I was the guy out there mapping those. And so it's cool to fish a spot that I've actually mapped before. But yeah, I went into this tournament totally geared up for forward facing sonar, the whole gambit down the lake, chasing roaming fish or fish on offshore structure. But when I showed up and the lake was muddy, I knew, well, we're going to have to go shallow to win this thing. There's going to be too many fish moving up if it's going to be the same conditions we had. And I mean, it was warm pre-spawn, the full moon's right now. I mean, those fish, you know where they're going, and I just got in front of them and was fortunate there was enough of them coming to me. So, yeah. And like you were saying though, the Lawrence Sea map, I mean, huge key.
Are you using the there's different color palettes that they have?
Absolutely.
So you're using the different color palettes.
Yeah. Shading, you're doing the custom shading. That way, because it's kind of like, okay, well, this bay has got
this much good water, right?
This much good water back in there. This is where these fish are going to spawn. They'll hang out on these. Those fish were actually on it was a big eelgrass and isolated bushes back there. And there were some fish roaming around the eelgrass, but the better fish were right up next to the bushes. And some of them were so shallow. I mean, probably my biggest fish the second day, I saw it from probably 200 yards away chasing a brim, a shad, I'm not sure, but waked out of this bush. I thought, I'm going to do everything I can to get back there. I mean, it was the farthest bush back.
Wow.
And I raised my trolling motor all the way up, put it on 2. That way, I mean, the ghost was another big key. I mean, sneaking around in there, getting on these fish without them knowing you're there, and making really, really long casts.
And you're a shallow water power fisherman from way back. So so don't think he's a young kid that is out there just using his electronics and thinking that's your whole game plan. Your game plan is you're well rounded, which probably plays a big part.
Absolutely.
So where are you off to next? Where does the invitationals go?
Invitationals, they're coming up on Lake Eufaula in April. I think
in Oklahoma.
Yep, April the 14th through the 16th, I believe.
So
I'm looking forward to that being a lot closer to home. Hopefully we can find some magical area like we did at Clarks Hill and see what happens. But
and then you go to
Lake of the Ozarks.
Lake of the Ozarks.
Yep.
And
So
then
both of those are much closer.
Right. And then you travel.
Yeah. Then it's back on the train. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're going to.
After that, we go to
Virginia.
Maryland, the Potomac River. Yeah.
Yep.
So
Tidal River.
That one will be that'll be a learning curve for me, very much like Okeechobee. You guys will notice after Okeechobee, I wasn't in here doing this interview because after Okeechobee, I finished about dead last. I wasn't. Marty Stone, he said it best. He called me after my first day. He said, "Don't worry." He said, "I've been in your exact shoes before."
Right.
My first pro tournament, he said, I wasn't dead last, but I was next door neighbors to him. So that is exactly how I felt after Okeechobee. So Potomac River, it'll be a challenge too. I mean, lots of grass, fluctuating water with the tides and everything. Yeah. So I'm looking forward to it. And then we finish up the season up at the Mississippi River in La Crosse, Wisconsin. So
which is another phenomenal place. It can be.
Yeah, right.
Can't be because I've been there, fished that, done that. Tom Monser, I actually fished with up there. So people,
little swim jig might come into hand here in a couple months up there. Yeah.
Is he fishing? I wonder if he's fishing. Is he fishing in the Invitationals?
I think I saw him at the Okeechobee. I don't remember if he was at Clarks Hill, but
I'll check that out.
I bet he'll find a way in up there in La Crosse at his hometown.
Tell us a little bit about these rods. We were talking before the show, and both of us living here in Northwest Arkansas, and you said those were the jewel rods.
Yep, these are the Virtus Virtus rods made over there in Harrison, Arkansas. So
Right.
just a couple hours down the road. I just partnered up with these guys before the season kicked off, and so I've got 2 tournaments under my belt throwing these rods, and I mean they've made a difference. So this rod here, a little bit longer than your typical swim jig rod, but for the application I was using it for, that 3 inches was huge as far as getting
What
your
is
bait.
the length of that rod?
This one here is a 7.6. It's geared as their flip
7.6?
pitch. Yeah, and
That's
so
a long rod.
that's for throwing a swim jig, and you would think, this long rod is going to wear you down, but these rods are incredibly light, very sensitive.
Right.
And I mean, my hook up to land ratio, and incredibly strong. That 6-pounder, I didn't say this. I didn't think it was as big as it was, and I actually boat flipped it. And then
really,
when it hit the carpet, I thought, wow, I'm very lucky that I've got a very strong rod, and this thing held up on me and put the fish in the boat. But no, these are great rods. They're man-made here in Arkansas.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't get any better than American-made components. I mean, head to toe, and they've got a full staff over there, and
right.
they're great people. If you guys are in the market for a new rod, want to buy one that is 100% American-made, make sure and check out Virtus Jewel Rods.
And your do you have a trophy room? Do you have like a fireplace or something where you stick all yours? Or
not yet. It's kind of like a little cabinet, but thankfully it's growing pretty quick.
Right.
2022 was a fantastic year for getting the hardware, and so far we're starting off pretty well in 2023 as well.
There you go.
Yeah.
That takes us up to Tackle Time. Tackle Time sponsored by PICO Lures. PICO Lures makes a complete line of hard and soft baits. Everything from bass fishing to crappie fishing. You name it, walleye fishing. Anything you do out there fishing for, PICO Lures has it. Make sure you check them out at picolures.com. If they want to find out more about you, if they want to see it, they want to see you in action, where would they go?
Well, so I think the first day of the Eufaula tournament, I'll have a camera in my boat, so make sure to tune in to MajorLeagueFishing.com. Follow the live. But as far as that, best way to get a hold of me is through Instagram, Travis Harriman, and then follow along on the ride we're going on, because after Okeechobee, my spirits are pretty low, but now it's a whole new confidence is instilled in me.
All right, there you go. Like I always like to end the show, make sure you keep your hook sharp and your lures in the water.